Hey everybody, it's Becky from Icing on Top Becky's Cakes, and today I'm going to do this fall-inspired sugar sculpture with this blown sugar fox carrying a little butterfly, and then I'm going to show you how to use just a basic sculpture and how to put it together and then make these leaves and the designs. So this was a really fun one and I can't wait to get started. So I'm going to use my flex forms. These are the Simicakes forms, and then I'm going to use this pastry ring, and I'm just going to rub some vegetable oil around the pastry ring. And you can use any kind of metal cookie cutters and stuff as long as you put vegetable oil on it first, and that way the Isomalt can pop out when you're done. And then just place it on a silicone mat, and make sure your silicone mats are for high temperatures like this one is. And so these are just like silicone noodles. They're Simicakes flex forms, and I love the stuff on her site, so I get a lot of those. And then I got a little silicone thing for the butterflies. I am heating up my Isomalt in the microwave, but we don't want to pour it when it's all that bubbly. You do want to bring it to a boil, but don't pour it when you still have all those bubbles in it. Wait until most of the bubbles have popped, and then we can pour it when it's nice and clear. The Isomalt I'm using this time is from Satin Ice's granules that I did a tutorial on how to cook Isomalt so that you have a bunch of pre-cooked Isomalt ready to pop in the microwave whenever you want to use it. If you don't want to cook your own, you can just buy it pre-cooked from Simicakes. Has a really great pre-cooked Isomalt. And then I just heat it up in the microwave until it all melted, usually at 30-second intervals. And now I'm just pouring it. I had a silicone dish that I used to heat it up, and I'm just pouring it all the way down this simi form that I have here. It's like a silicone form. And then for the base, I'm just going to fill this a little thicker than my form, because I always have whatever's on the base thicker than whatever I'm building on top of it. So each piece gets progressively thinner. And here's a little butterfly wing. I'm going to show you how I did this. I do half at a time so that I can make it look like the butterfly is in flight and not flat. So if I just do half a butterfly wing at a time and then I make the center, it works much better. So I'm just going to pour to make one wing here. So I just pour it, move it over half this wing here. And once I get it far enough away, I don't want it too close to the edge because I am going to press down with the other side, and then I'll make it ooze out a little bit. So we're just going to gently press this side. This is also a silicone, and a lot of these silicone products I find on Amazon. You just have to make sure that it's for high heat if you're actually pouring the Isomalt into it or something like that. And so I'm just going to press this, and I'm going to keep it there just until it's completely cooled. Then I can pull it out, and then I'll have my wing done. So we wait till it's cooled, and then I can slowly peel this back and pull it out. I'm going to pour a little bit of this Isomalt right on my mat for the body. I'm just going to kind of pour it out. It's in a thin little line so it'll cool quicker. And I'm going to use just my gloves to just kind of pull that up and form it into the body of the butterfly. I use cotton gloves because I don't like to burn off my fingerprints here, so I have cotton gloves underneath the other gloves that I use. The cotton protects my hand from the heat more, and yeah, I don't have a high tolerance for heat, so I still use these because sugar is super duper hot. And I'm just kind of rolling this until I get the shape that I want for the center of the butterfly's body. And then when it's done, I'm going to use a half sphere mold that I have. I use these half sphere molds quite a bit. And I like that it helps keep a curved shape on some of my animals and different structures. And I'm going to go ahead and get that other butterfly wing out of here before I put it all together. Just gently peel that out, and it'll show that impression of the butterfly wing really cool here. I'm going to very lightly hit it with my torch because there's just a little bit of cloudiness or bubbles. But you want to hit it really lightly or you're going to lose the whole pattern that you just got from that mold. Okay, so in order to stick the butterfly wings to the center of the body, I need to heat it with my torch and then lightly heat the wings, and that'll allow it to glue. So with sugar or ice malt, anytime you want to glue one piece of ice malt or sugar to the other piece, you try to heat both pieces. Sometimes you can only heat one side if the other piece is very fragile, like a blown sugar ball or something. You never want to hit that with your torch because it's so thin that it'll just break your ball. So in that case, you just heat the other, whatever else you're sticking to it. And if both pieces are super fragile and you can't heat either with your torch, then you just use a little bit of melted Isomalt to act as your glue and just place that on with a skewer, wooden skewer, or a silicone tool or something. But yes, always use the sugar to glue to the other piece of sugar. So most cases you can just heat them like this, and then that sugar, once it dries and cools, it keeps its place. So I'm just going to stick this while it's still warm into the half sphere, and that'll keep those wings kind of in movement, and otherwise they will just lie flat. I used Simicakes Color Splash Airbrush food coloring to color all my ice malts, and it's really pretty colors and it works really great with ice malt, so I really like her colors. So right now I'm just pouring it on my mat, and then I'm gonna cool it. You can kind of tell that when you touch the edges that it's not cooled yet. You kind of want to press it in on each other back and forth until it all cools, and then you can touch it with your hands when it's no longer in liquid form. So I just kind of press it back and forth, and you can see how it becomes more and more sticky the more it cools. So once it sticks completely on each other, you probably have to do this for a while until it starts to become a ball that you can roll with your hands. If you try to touch it too soon, it'll just be all gooey on your hands, and you don't want to do that. So once we've pressed it back and forth enough times, we're gonna pull it together in a little ball and then start to pull it back and forth to create more satiny shine to it, and evens out the heat as well. So the more you pull it, the more of the satin shine you get, and it becomes a little more opaque, and also it'll even out that temperature too, because even temperature is important when you're pulling things and you want it to all be the same temperature, or even if you're about ready to roll into a ball and blow it, so you want it to be an even temperature. Right now I'm going to pull out some leaves, so I'm just kind of shaping the leaf with my hand, and then I'm going to just cut it with my scissors. I have a silicone leaf press here that works really great. I got it in a set, and they have all different kinds of leaves, and it shows different kind of veins in the leaves, so I love using this. So I'm just going to go ahead and pull the size leaf I want, and then I'm just going to cut it with my scissors. Since it's nice and soft still, I can do that. If it's too cool, it won't let me cut it like this. It'll just shatter. So you want to make sure that you're cutting it while it's still nice and soft and warm. And if you need to pop this piece in the microwave for a little bit to get it warm again, you can do that. Only put it in for a few seconds. Then I heat it with my torch so that it'll really pick up those veins when I press this on there. So I press it in there really good. And I'm not going to remove that until I'm sure that it's cooled. So it only takes a couple minutes for it to cool. So I'm just going to lift up a little bit to check. If it looks at all sticky, then I just press it back down until I'm sure that it's cool enough for me to pull off. All right, and then that came right off, so it's cool enough. I'm going to gently peel this leaf out. And then in order to have my leaf nice and curved, you see all those cool veins? I absolutely love doing this. So to keep it curved like this, I'm again going to use a half sphere mold. I love these silicone molds because I use them with so many things. And I'm just going to kind of set that there so it keeps its shape. If you don't have a half sphere mold like this, I've even used like a paper towel roll that's been emptied, and I cut that in half, and then I put some wax paper on that so it doesn't stick to it, and I just use that to keep it shaped. So you can use whatever's around the house. You could even probably put it on a rolling pin. And so there's many different ways to keep that shape if you don't have these. I'm just gonna pull another one here to show you one more time. And then I'm gonna pull them in different colors like orange and red, so I'll have different beautiful leaves to stick to my design. And there's another beautiful leaf to show you. And I just love how these look like stained glass. And I'm just gonna have that curve a little bit, and I'll place that in a curved mold as well. Then I just pop the base out of the pastry cutter, and I'm gonna pull these silicone noodles off of my middle design, and then I'm gonna gently lift the silicone mat from the bottom, and then I can slowly peel it off this design. And then we can use our torch to lightly get some of this texture from the mat off and get any cloudiness off so that it's nice and shiny. Okay, now we're going to use the same principle for when we stick things together, Isomalt pieces together. We're going to heat the base first, right where we're going to be sticking our other piece, and then we're going to heat the bottom of the other piece, and then just press it very gently where we want it to go, and we want to just press it until it completely cools and is solid. So I'm just going to hang on to that, otherwise it's going to slip around, just until I know that that is completely cooled and hardened and will hold its spot. So there, now it's holding its spot. And now I'm going to take another piece of pulled sugar. This is one that I've already poured on my mat and pulled back and forth several times. It's still warm, and so I'm rolling it into a ball. And then I'm going to get my sugar pump. We're starting on the fox now. And get my sugar pump, and what I'm going to do with this sugar pump, as you can see, there's still some sugar on the end, and that's great because that'll help it stick even better to my sugar ball. And so I'm just going to heat that really well, and then place it about 1/3 of the way into my sugar ball. And then I'm going to pinch the ends down near the base to make sure that no air is going to escape. And once I make sure that that is on really well, I'm going to roll that back and forth so it keeps its form really well, and then give it one pump, and then just wait and make sure I form that again. We don't want to pump air into it fast, because if you do that, one side will get too thin, the other side will be too thick, and it just won't pump evenly. So I'm just going to roll this back and forth with my hand, and then give it another pump. And you can kind of see it start to raise a little bit each time I give it a pump. And then I'm going to move it back and forth again, and keep that very even where the air distributes right in the center. And I'm trying to make the body for my fox right now, so it's going to be larger than the head size. So the head, I would probably stop right about here, and then only add air for it to keep its form. Whereas the body, I want it to be a little bigger, so I'm going to add a little more air. I have my fan going. You just can't see it, it's off camera, but the fan is going to help cool this ball too. And as you can see, I gave it a little bit of a pull now, so that my rod is no longer in the middle of this sugar ball. It is now toward the end. That just makes it easier when I am ready to cut the Isomalt off. All I have to do is heat the Isomalt on the end, and then I can snip it with scissors. So I am pulling it slowly so that my copper tubing is outside of my ball. And sometimes I'm going to roll it on the counter too, because the coolness of the counter will help one side not be as soft. So if I see one side is getting a little softer than the other side, if I put that side on the cool counter, it helps it firm up and cool up more, and that helps you evenly distribute where that air is going. And now that I got it about the size that I want and it's completely cooled, now I'm going to heat the end right there very carefully, and then I'm going to snip it. I'm going to snip it gently because if I feel that it's not soft enough, then I'm going to heat it again a little more, hit it with a little more heat, and then go in again. Because if you try to force the cut, then you're just going to shatter it. So once we get one side done, this is the body of the fox. I'm going to blow a nice rounder bit for the head. So just same idea, only it's going to be smaller. And then I just stick it together with a little bit of Isomalt, and I'm setting that aside. And I'm going to get out again my half sphere mold, and I'm going to cut some pieces for the ear. So for the ears, I just want kind of like a triangle piece of Isomalt for those. And I want them to be curved, so that's why I'm setting them in my half sphere mold. So I'm just going to curve it, set it in there, and I'm going to wait till these pieces are completely cooled before I try to put it all together with my fox. The putting it together part is the fun part, but we have to get all the little pieces done. So I'm going to set a large piece aside for the tail too. I didn't do that on camera. I must have shut off my video at that point, but I basically will roll it like I did the legs. So I'm going to show you how to do the legs now. Same deal here. Once you pour the Isomalt onto the mat, you just move it back and forth until you can start to handle it. And now I'm going to make a couple legs. The 4 legs in front I'm going to have longer, and then I'm going to have little tiny pieces for the back legs for him to sit on. And so I'm just going to roll these out here. And I want my fox to be able to hold this butterfly, so I also want to keep that in mind when I'm making his arms, is that I'm going to have to be able to move them a little bit. If these get too hard by the time I try to put them onto my fox, I just need to hit them with a little more heat from my torch, and that helps me be able to move them again. So anytime something is too hard, you can just hit it on both sides with your torch again to try to get that to soften up a little more. So I'm going to set that little leg aside, measure out where I want these arms to sit, and then I'm going to put this piece back here. Okay, now I'll put the 2 little back legs, and I'm just going to heat those and set the body of the fox on those. And then I'm going to heat up the arms, especially if they aren't movable anymore because they've hardened. Just run that torch all the way down them if they won't move on you. Mine are still a little bit soft, so I can still mold them and put them where I want. And I want the little hands coming out front so they can hold the butterfly. And then I'll just repeat that for the other side. And then I've got to put the ears on, so I'm just going to heat those. But oh yeah, first I want to put the mouth, the nose, the little snout area. I'm going to add basically like a cone shape, and I'm putting that right on the front here. And then I'm going to heat up the bottom tips of the ears, and I'll place those ones on. Now my 8-year-old here says that my fox looks like a pig, and he's not wrong. So if you're making a pig, this actually works for that. But anyway, I put on the thick tail on the back too, so that should help with the whole looking more like a fox thing. My 6-year-old, however, thought this looked like a rat. So we've got several figures that you can make out of this, but once I add the painting on, that'll help make it look more like a fox than the other animals. And I'm just using Simicakes color splash. Again, this is an airbrush coloring, and I'm just painting it on. And you will want to probably do this in layers. So if you paint the first layer and then come back and then add another layer, and then it'll get more solid as you add those layers. Hey, so now we get to do the fun part. I get to find my leaves and start sticking those to our sculpture. And what we're gonna do is we're gonna very gently heat those leaves because they're a little more fragile, and then we're gonna heat the location that we're gonna put them on so that the warm Isomalt sticks to each other. And if you find it didn't stick, you just need to add a little more heat. And then it'll stick where you want it. You hold it for a few seconds and then let go, and it should adhere. If it didn't adhere, you just needed to add a little more heat. Then I wanted to place my fox because I want to see where he's going to be sitting, and then that'll let me know where I want to put the rest of my leaves. So I just kind of position him there, and then I'm going to position the leaves so that you can see them all around where the fox is at. This is a super fun fall project, and if the fox is too much for you to take on the first time, you could even add a pumpkin to the bottom here. That'd be fun. Pumpkin, you'd only have to just blow the one part, and that would make it really easy. Or if you didn't want to get into blowing, maybe just roll a sugar ball and put that there, and then add a little piece for the stem of the pumpkin, and then you're not getting into crazy blowing territory, but blowing can be a lot of fun. And I really enjoyed how he turned out, and he was super cute. There's the butterfly. I ended up painting the butterfly yellow with a paintbrush using the same color that I did for the leaves. So this was a really fun project, and thank you so much for joining me on this one today. And if you have interest in more Isomalt or sugar pieces, just check out my channel for lots of different sculptures and even how to cook it. If you want to do sugar instead of Isomalt, I even have a sugar recipe, and that would also work for this project if you didn't want to use Isomalt. But again, sugar is a little more difficult because you can't reheat it like Isomalt. But anyway, thank you so much for joining me today, and please subscribe to my channel.